Meantime, Germany lifting range restrictions on weapons it sends to Ukraine as well, joining the U.S. and other key allies to bolster their ground defense. Let's bring in Kurt Volker, former special representative for Ukraine negotiations during the first Trump term and now former ambassador to NATO. Mr. Ambassador, I want to read you this. Just in from the Kremlin, Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president, now the deputy chief of the Security Council, says this. Regarding Trump's words about Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia, I only know of one really bad thing, World War III. I hope Trump understands this. Are you shaking in your boots?
Exactly. I would not pay any attention to Medvedev, and I wouldn't pay any attention to that kind of bluffing. And clearly, Russia does not want World War III, and if we were involved, Russia would not last very long. So I would not put any stock in that. What I would say, though, is that we do need to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin. He continues to ignore President Trump. He continues to launch these attacks against Ukraine, killing lots of people. And this is not new. He's been doing this for years. He has just escalated as President Trump is calling for an end to the war. So I think it's time to actually put some hard pressure on Putin.
What do you make about President Trump's public comments, like the one we played for you there in the intro, where he seems oddly to feel betrayed by Putin?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what his past relationship with Putin was, going way back. But
he says he's known him a long time and they always get along well. Those were his words over the weekend as well.
That's what he said. And we have seen Putin attack neighboring countries, Georgia in 2008, Ukraine in 2014 and 15, Ukraine again in 2022. He's also murdered opponents at home like Navalny. He's murdered opponents abroad like Litvinenko in the UK. He's conducted hybrid attacks against NATO countries, which he still does on an ongoing basis. So there should be no surprise here. We know what Putin's about. He's also declared his intentions with respect to Ukraine. He doesn't believe Ukraine should be a sovereign, independent country. He believes it should be part of Russia because he wants to rebuild the Russian Empire. So unless we are fine with that and all the threats to Europe that implies, he just needs to be stopped now. And we can turn up the heat, and we should be doing it.
I mean, where I come from, you would call him a monster, among other things. But yet the Trump administration, take a listen to General Kellogg on our air this morning talking about moving forward with more negotiations.
When President Trump spoke with President Putin a little over a week ago, the Russians said they were going to come up with what they call a memorandum, which what I call a term sheet. We've got that from the Ukrainian side. We need to get that from the Russian side. Then we'll put it together, and then there's going to be another meeting, and we believe it'll be probably in Geneva.
What do you think?
Well, we know what the Russian terms will be. They're going to say that they want to have recognition of all of the territory that Russia has claimed to annex from Ukraine. They want that recognized as Russian territory. That includes pieces of Ukraine that Russia has not militarily taken. They want Ukraine to withdraw from those areas. They want Ukraine to have a new government.
Which, by the way, is a non-starter.
They want Ukraine not to have a military.
Right, on the U.S. side.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
All of these are non-starters. We know what this is going to say. And the reason that Putin feels comfortable putting out these kinds of demands, as they did in Istanbul, as they've done in letters in the past, or as they will do in this memorandum if they ever produce it, they feel comfortable because they don't really feel any pressure to end the war. And so here, I think what President Trump has hinted at, secondary sanctions that would really hit Russia's gas and oil and financial sectors so that they cannot get the money to continue this war. I think that is absolutely essential. And we also need to have a pathway in place where Ukraine will get air defense weapons and other defensive arms, ammunition, military supplies on an ongoing basis, not paid for by taxpayers, but Ukraine paying its own way, either borrowing the money from us and paying us back later, or getting Europe to pay, or using this minerals deal. But we need to show Putin that he's never going to actually win this militarily. He's only going to weaken Russia. And it's that kind of logic that I think can get Putin to wind this down.
Trump alluding to those secondary sanctions over the weekend, he said it's essentially something that he is considering as a possible, end to the current impasse. Yeah. Let's hope that he decides quickly.
Trump has said this at least 3 times. He said at least 3 times he's considering it, but it's time to act.
All right, Mr. Ambassador, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.